Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order of the Governing Board, May 20th, 2021. If we will all please rise, if you're able to, for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. There is a quorum here. All directors are here and present. And the next thing is approval of minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the Governing Board meetings of April 22nd? Hearing none, they will stand as ordered. Bob Carneiro, you're up next. Thank you. This is Governing Board recognition.
The association has some very remarkable employees. On April 24th, one of our courageous and fast-thinking Trail Ridge player assistants, Mike Beck, saved a life. A golfer had a medical issue while driving his golf cart on the Trail Ridge course. He lost consciousness and was thrown from his golf cart, resulting in severe head, arm, and foot injuries. Mike happened to be nearby and determined that the injured man was unconscious, whereupon he administered CPR until the EMTs arrived. Mike's quick actions and knowledge of CPR most likely saved the resident's life. And just on a side note, we did find out the injured man is recovering at home. It is our privilege to recognize Mike Beck's heroics today. We value him and his dedication to the safety of our Sun City West community and its residents. This says this certificate of commendation is awarded to Mike Beck in recognition of his life-saving CPR heroics from the Recreation Centers of Sun City West. Mike, thank you very much for being a great employee. There we go. You're not a techie, obviously, are you?
Thank you, Bob. And Mike, there are no thanks that we can say on things like this. Having our residents always under the watchful eye of each other is what we're supposed to be. Thank you very much. Donna Maloney, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the consent agenda and accept the May 2021 end of the month reports as filed information.
Thank you very much. Next item on our just the reports, we have Bob Wilson from Torch here to give us a.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Ask just a question. I have some questions on the EOM. So how do I ask them?
EOM.
Oh, yeah.
These are it's there. EOM reports are filed for information only. They're not approved by us. You can contact the chairperson directly if there's an issue. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Bob Wilson. I'm the chairperson for the Torch Committee. Just as a preamble for the folks here that and the audience at large, Torch was created as a special committee of the board. It was created about 13 years ago to educate residents about everything Sun City West. We did that in 8 sessions twice yearly until the pandemic shut down in February, March of last year. TORCH is actually an acronym standing for Tapping Our Resources, Citizens, and Heritage. The goal of the special committee is to have graduates of the Torch Academy better know how Sun City West operates, as well as what amenities and services, both inside and outside the community, are available to them. They have the opportunity to see and learn about the facilities and amenities and available, as well as meet and be able to talk to key people within the rec centers and service and volunteer organizations that make the community better. It's hoped that the graduates will share this knowledge, and some will consider getting involved with volunteer opportunities within the community. And I think a lot of the current board members are Torch graduates. After the pandemic hiatus last year, we are planning not to do the fall academy, but our next academy will be spring of 2022. Now, the monthly report. 3 new members of the committee were introduced and welcomed by the current members. We started the process to prepare the next Torch Academy in February of 2022. With additional time until the next academy, the committee decided to take a critical look at all aspects of the academy with a view to changing and updating the format, information, and presentations as necessary. Katie O'Grady and Marie Rosinski presented ideas about streamlining and reworking some of the sessions. There was a worthwhile discussion and input from all members of the committee on topics to be presented, the structure of the presentations, and member interaction during the academy. It was decided to retain the team structure and the number of sessions within the academy. Committee member Karen Gamble will work with Katie and Marie on one of the sessions which will see changes to present at our next meeting. Terry Hammond, the co-chairperson of the committee, reminded everyone that there's a memorial today for Randy Smith, a long-standing member and great contributor to the efforts of the committee, who passed away earlier this year. It'll be at 11 o'clock, May 20th, at Camino del Sol Funeral Home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions for Bob Wilson? Thank you so much, and thank you for all you do. Great academy. Right. Next on the list, 5.0, new staff presentations. We have scratched these items. Todd was unable to be here today for personal reasons, and so we will handle that at our next workshop directly. Ann, you're up next.
Thank you, President George. The April 2021 financials have been reviewed and accepted by the Budget and Finance Committee. They have been filed.
Thank you very much. Okay, on to new business. Roberta, this is where you get mileage coming in. You have a long list. You're first.
I could use it on my trip in July. Okay. Revised policy FAO1, per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve in gross revisions to policy FAO1, capital project planning process, as redlined.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? There's a second by Bob. Is there any other discussion about this issue? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Will you please reread the motion?
Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve in gross revisions to policy FAO1 as redlined.
Okay, yay or nay? A yay vote is to adopt the policy as redlined, and nay would be Jim? Yes. Bob? Yay. Donna?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Roberta?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes, and I just want to note that there was a question about the chart, and it has been revised as requested. So I do vote yes.
Thank you very much. Sharon?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. As carried unanimously. Roberta, number 2.
Revised policy FAO1 addendum. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve in gross flow chart revisions to policy FA01, capital project planning process addendum as redlined.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? There's a second by Jim. Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, I know we have to repeat the motion, proper procedure, and we'll go for a vote then.
Revised policy FA01 addendum. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve in-gross flow chart revisions to policy FA01, capital project planning process addendum as redlined.
Thank you. A vote of yea will be to adopt this. A vote of nay will not be. So, Sharon?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Roberta?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Bob? Jim? Carried unanimously. Roberta? I'm telling you, you should be on stage on this one.
I know. Revised policy FA02. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve in-gross revisions to policy FA02, donation, I can never say that word, memorialization, naming, and advertising guidelines as redlined.
Thank you. Is there a second to this
Second.
motion? Second by Sue. Okay, is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none. Roberta, take a break. I'll reread the motion for you
Okay.
on this one. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee after discussion by the Governing Board, Roberta Davison moves that the Governing Board approve in-gross revision to policy FA02, donations, memorializations, naming, and advertising guidelines as redlined. A yea vote will be to adopt it, a nay vote will not be. Donna?
Yes.
Bob? Jim? Sue?
Yes.
Roberta?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Thank you. I never guess who's up next.
Woo-hoo. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve in-gross revisions to and renaming of the donation, memorialization, naming, and advertising guidelines for procedural use by association staff as redlined.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Lou's a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll help you out with this.
Thank you. I can't say the word.
No, it's not that. It's just I don't want you to get too tired saying it. Revised donation memorialization naming and advertising guidelines. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee after discussion by the Governing Board, Roberta Davison moves that the Governing Board approve in-gross revisions to the renaming of the donations, memorializations, namings, and advertising guidelines for procedural use by association staff as redlined. Majority to vote would be here. Yea is to adopt it, nay is not to adopt it. Lou?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Roberta?
Yes.
Jim? Bob? Donna?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And Roberta, you're up again.
All right, revised policy FA07, per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve in-gross revisions to policy FA07, association approved non-event advertising as redlined.
Thank you. Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Oh, Ann, we'll give Ann a shot once in a while. That's okay. Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none. Roberta, if you don't mind, just to save your voice a little, I'll do this for you.
Okay.
Okay. As per the recommendation of Properties Committee after discussion by the Governing Board, Roberta Davison moves that the Governing Board approve in-gross revision to policy FA07, association approved non-event advertising as redlined. A yay vote is to adopt it, a nay vote is not to. Sue?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Bob? Jim? Ann?
Yes.
Roberta?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay,
Next.
almost there, Roberta.
Almost there. Revised policy FA10. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve in-gross revisions to policy FA10, association approved single event sponsorship as redlined.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
That's Donna. All right, we love it. Love seconds going around. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none. Roberta, I will take a revised policy FA10. As per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, Roberta Davidson moves that the Governing Board approve in-gross revision to policy FA10, association approved single event sponsorship as redlined. Yea vote is to adopt, the nay vote is not to adopt. Roberta?
Aye.
Lou?
Yes.
Sharon?
Aye.
Ann?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Bob? Donna?
Yes.
Jim? Thank you very much. One more, Roberta.
Oh, wow. Revised policy FA11, per the recommendation of the Properties Committee and after discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve the elimination of policy FA11, authorization of expenditure of changing demographic funds for capital projects.
Thank you. Is there a second to this?
I second.
Donna's a second. Is there any further discussion on this?
Just a comment. I'm just surprised that the Properties Committee over the years has been able to survive.
Well, you know what, Jim? I'm sure that you had much to do with that because, listen, as an outgoing director, we can always blame you. It's a good thing.
True. No, get Bob first.
We'll get Bob first. There you go. Okay, is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Second by Bob. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, call for, I will put it out there. Per the recommendation of the Properties Committee after discussion by the Governing Board, Roberta Davidson moves that the Governing Board approve the elimination of policy FA11, authorization of expenditures of changing demographic funds for capital projects. A yea vote will be to retire this, a nay vote will to keep it on there. Jim?
Yay.
Bob?
Yay.
Ann?
Yay.
Donna?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Roberta?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Roberta, thank you for your marathon on this one. Well appreciated. Next on the agenda is Donna Maloney.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is revised policy L05. After discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve addition of the pointer to policy FA10 as section 2.1 of policy statement L05, posting of signs and distribution of literature as redlined. Thank you.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Sue's a second. Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, please reread the motion.
Yes, Mr. President. This is a revised policy L05. After discussion by the Governing Board, I move that the Governing Board approve addition of the pointer to policy FA10 as section 2.1 of policy statement L05, posting of signs and distribution of literature as redlined.
Thank you very much. This a yea vote will be to adopt this, a nay vote will be not to. First up, Lou.
Yes.
Sharon?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Roberta?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Bob?
Yeah, aye.
Jim?
Yay.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is Ann Brown about tax status.
Thank you, President George. Over the last couple of days, Riley, who is in charge of the charter clubs, and some others on our staff have met with representatives from the different types of charter clubs. I believe one meeting was for clubs that have a lot of outside guests involved. There's some card playing and dancing clubs. Another one was for clubs that really do not ever sell anything. They're more sports or sports-minded clubs. Those also include clubs that may have some advertising or sponsorships like pickleball, tennis, and softball. And then another meeting was for clubs that have a lot of sales of crafts and products that people are making. So does anyone have anything they want to chime in?
I attended the last meeting the other day, and so did, and I'm going to call on our director-elect, Lisa. I know. I thought the meeting was well-run, well-attended, and the questions were very pertinent there. And there were some things that came up that we as a governing board need to do better when people are not selected for committees and things like that. I made a commitment to that, and that'll be handled by the incoming president and by Karen for selection on committees, subcommittees, and things like that. But overall, the message was out there, and I thought it was well received. There was going to be some angry folk, but we knew that. But overall, it was probably a very minor minority of the people that were there. So that would be, it was really very well done and well attended too. I would say there probably was, what'd you say, Katie, about 50 people here yesterday? You know, and that was good. It really was. But thank you.
Well, the feedback I've gotten was that they felt like the staff had done their due diligence and research in this, and they appreciated the information that was given out. And now it'll be up to the clubs to determine where they're going from here.
Yeah, one of the main themes that came up on all of it was of who's to blame for this and whatever. And it's not that. It's that we're at a point in time where we know it was wrong. Our job is to fix it. And again, one of the things I will thank not only staff for, the governing board on this issue, is we have not made a knee-jerk reaction to this. We are willing to take the time to fix it once and fix it right. And that is what we're supposed to do. And that is a great place to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ann, you're up number 2 on this one.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
How are we going to address the clubs that weren't able to be here?
They can go in to see Riley there. If they did not
Individually?
attend, it's open, absolutely. The presentation has been YouTubed, okay, so they can view the whole presentation, and it's also available online.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Yes, Sharon?
Just a couple of questions. One is.
Sharon, is your microphone on?
Yes, it is. It
thank
says
you.
it is. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
One of the things is that it's in the letter of the memorandum letter, is misinformation about having to have, it states that they're just supposed to go out and get their own tax person or see them if they have questions about it. And specifically, I believe in our policies, it states that if you're going to do that, you have to have it.
That is being addressed right now with them.
Can I finish,
Yes,
please?
go right ahead.
It specifically states to go out and do that, and since we've said that this committee is not meeting anymore, it seems to me that this committee needs to be still going on in the next set of, the next parameter. I don't know how you want to word that, but basically, you don't want to have these clubs going out and getting additional information from a variety of people that will now bring them back to us and say, this is what I was told. This is why it's supposed to go through the general manager in particular. So just the fact that you are looking at it says to me that we have not made a decision on everything. And I don't believe the other clubs, there are some clubs that don't fit into the parameters that we're trying to fit them in, and I don't know what we're doing with those. I specifically asked questions of the attorney. I never heard answers back. We all met as a board, and I don't believe the board ever discussed this as a board. It went right by us. It just went to Ann's committee, and then we have Bill saying, we've decided, and I don't know that we decided anything.
We haven't decided anything.
Okay, so, but you have decided something. You're telling them we're putting all the policies in the way they used to be, and you're leaving it that way for 40 years ago when some of them don't fit into those categories. So how can you say we're still doing that?
Anthony,
Well,
into the microphone.
For one thing, what we're trying to do is get back to following the CC&Rs that were originally enacted by Del Webb that have not been followed. If the committee does need to meet further, Sharon, we will do that. We have not scheduled any more meetings, but we do have the ability to meet if that's necessary.
Okay, and so the meetings would then be open, is that correct?
As long as we're not having meetings with our attorney, yes, they will be open.
But the last one wasn't open and you didn't have a meeting with an attorney. The only time that the open meeting laws are supposed to be used is we are supposed to be as transparent as policy. This is, as all policy should be, to side on the way of giving out information, not keeping people from being able to listen in on what's being said. And as far as I'm concerned, the second meeting should have been open because there was not an attorney on it. The attorney questions that this board asked have never been answered. No one's ever come back to this board and said, here's the questions that we asked, could we please have the answers to these? Because I know my 2 questions haven't been answered. And so I'm just asking why, on the open meeting law part, the rest of the community was not entitled to come to the second meeting.
Sharon, at that time, we were discussing things that the attorney had told us and trying to make decisions, and we felt that it fell under the ability to have a closed meeting.
Okay, and it doesn't. That's what I'm trying to say. If you read the Arizona information that's in the agency handbook, it states that attorney information that you talk about is to be an open meeting. You only are allowed to close a meeting when you have an attorney on the line. You can't just say the entire discussion is now, because we get information from the attorney all the time on this board, and we don't make it a closed meeting. So we can't just close it because we want to talk about something. That's not the purpose of the Arizona open laws. And I think that one of the things that this board and the one going forward needs to have is to look at this, because we need to know exactly when we can and can't close a meeting.
Well, perhaps I was given wrong information, Sharon. I appreciate your input.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this issue?
Yes, are we going to do something for the next group that's coming in? Can we set something up for that? Or is this just...
About the
what I don't-
tax, we're talking about the tax.
Right, I'm asking that.
You're asking, what are you
Well,
asking?
this letter is not complete. It can't go the way it is. It says right now that we have to have, that you're just supposed to go out and get information. The letter is not correct. You're supposed to go through the general manager. We either change the policy or we change the letter. We have one of 2 options, but we can't just say...
Which policy would you like to change?
I don't know which one it's written under. I can tell you, I did not bring it with me. I'm sorry.
Well, that's fine. I will tell you what, we'll take it under advisement, put it to our workshop.
Okay?
Thank you. Any other discussion on this issue? Hearing none. The next one up is Ann Brown. You have the big one today.
Thank you, President George. After review and discussion by the governing board, I move that the governing board approve the RCSCW fiscal year 2021-22 total budget.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
It has been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion on this issue? Lou?
I have an issue, I have a question about the greenhouse replacement and expansion. Due to the 501c7 issues that are arising, I believe that the expansion was to accommodate future growth. Will there be future growth if, in fact, the memorandums that have gone out, which state that these clubs are not profit-making clubs, et cetera, et cetera? So I guess at the end of the day, do they need the same size greenhouse or do they need the larger greenhouse?
From what I was told and what I understand is that the greenhouse that's there is, if I remember correctly, 450 square feet, Carl? 380. And I think the addition was going to be their increased size. They don't have enough room actually to have anybody go in there who is ADA compliant or anything like that. The size of it is whatever. We're of the position that it's not we're telling the club that they have to sell it and that's why, or anything like that. It is a project that was put in there. We approved this in the budget already.
I realize that.
And to the need on it, they have demonstrated, according to Carl going through the process, a need for it.
Well, I have a second issue with that. I believe a governing board director-elect asked if there was a size between existing and the projected or the approved side, size, pardon me. And I don't believe that question was ever answered.
And then we'll answer to the sitting in General Manager Carl.
Any size was negotiable within the manufacturer's scope of offerings. So I do believe there was other sizes that could have been offered, but the discussion that created a presentation that was given to all the committees was a ask of 1,000 square foot, and that true dimensional size from the manufacturer is 960. So that's where it was settled on, and we've moved forward through that whole process based on that size.
Did I answer your question, Lou?
It does.
Thank you. I just want to, I want to make sure. I think, like you said, we're not building it. It had to do with how big the manufacturer can make it too. Because it's not, we're not building it piece by piece. It comes prefabbed.
So if I understand correctly, they currently have how many square feet? 300 and
380.
And
they asked for approximate 1,000 square foot, and the options I had was somewhere between 380 and 960, and then there was a 960 mark, and then there was a larger, and the 960 was the reasonable to what they projected in their growth, current use, and
so there was nothing between the 380 and the 960 available?
I'm certain there is an option in between there, yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm just, and I know that they were going to fund part of it, but because of the 501c7 issues, that's no longer acceptable. And if we follow the new guidelines for 501c7, will their production be such that they need that size? That's my comment.
Thank you. Roberta?
Just saying that this was reviewed by the Properties Committee and approved and recommended to the governing board.
Okay. All right.
I agree that that was the case, but that was prior to the 501c7 issues.
It really wasn't. I was, if I remember correctly, there were 2 votes against it, Ann and I, because of that exact reason that you're bringing up now. Why the rest of the board didn't want to go with it, I have no idea, but that's the choice you made. You voted for it.
Okay,
That's
but
what you
I
have.
also, as said, the only reason I was voting for it was because it was ADA. Because I believe that we have wants and needs, and I'm not sure that this, to me, is a need versus a want. So can we do something in between? It's the same comment.
Bring up the same point we talked about. That's exactly what we said.
Okay, just to remind the directors, this has been voted on and approved already. Okay, as the project, we voted on our last meeting that anything 50 and above was in mass, and everything above 100 as an individual line item just went through and was approved. So,
So why are we asking for approval now?
no, we're asking for approval of the budget in total. Okay, that is everything else. It's the general manager's operational budget.
So if I understand correctly, if we disagree with this component of the budget, we would vote no on the entire budget. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
That is absolutely correct.
Thank you.
Okay, and any other discussion on this? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ann, will you reread the motion, please?
Thank you. After review and discussion by the governing board, I move that the governing board approve the RCSCW fiscal year 2021-22 total budget.
Okay, once again, a vote of yea will be to approve it, a vote of nay will be ever. This requires a vote of 6 affirmative in order to pass the budget. And one of the great things about this is when the president gets to vote on this one if he needs to. Jim? Yeah. Bob? Yay. Ann? Donna?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Donna? Roberta?
Yes.
Lou?
No.
Sharon?
No, and I'd like to have an explanation with mine in the minutes. As far as I'm concerned, we should have looked a little harder at the budget in general in regards to both the wants and needs of the metal shop, who simply put a piece in and we should be able just to fix an easement and not add more money into it. The $30,000 on the contingency basis for the design club, of which they appear to be already spending money, even though it hasn't been voted on yet. Well, I'm not sure how we did the lizards then. Okay, so how did we pay for the lizards?
Excuse me.
So anyway, just
Sharon?
talking. I get to make my comment, sir, I believe.
No, you don't. At the vote, you may have your comment in the discussion portion, but at the vote side, no. Okay.
No.
Okay. No. 2 votes. We have 6 affirmative, 2 noes. The budget is passed for the fiscal year 21-22. Okay. Next thing, 6.11. I have a letter from Director Carneiro. Dear President George, this letter is to inform you that effective June 1st, 2021, I am resigning my position as Director of the Governing Board of the Recreation Centers of Sun City West. This move is of personal nature, as my wife and I have decided to move from Sun City West. I want to thank you all, the members of the board that I have worked with over the past 2 years. It's been a pleasure and fulfilling experience to have worked with such a dedicated people to keep Sun City West a great community and in a time of my life I will never forget. Sincerely, Bob Carneiro. This will be accepted as of June 1st. Thank you for your service, Bob. I'm just going to go around the room for any comments on that. Jim?
I'm going to miss my next door neighbor buddy.
I hear you. Donna?
The best of luck to you, Bob, and your family.
Sue?
Bob, thank you very much for your service. And
And-
it was great when we were campaigning the same
Yes.
year.
And
Bob, I want to tell you, I've enjoyed serving on the board with you very much, and don't let Jim give you a hard time, because he's leaving the end of the board anyway. One going to keep sitting next
I'm
to
just
you.
glad I'm beating him.
Yeah, well, I'm not, but best of luck to you and your family.
Roberta?
Yeah, good luck to you, Bob. Thanks for all your help. I do have a question. How do we fill his position?
That is something after I go around the table, I'll be happy to announce. Lou?
Bob, once again, I've just known you for a short time. I know you've been dedicated to the community in the posse, of course, and as a governing board director. And I would make a motion that the governing board send Bob and his family a housewarming gift.
As much as I would love that, we can't entertain a motion that's not on the agenda, Lou, but we will take your idea under advisement.
Maybe we can put it on the next workshop.
I think that would be very well.
Thank you. And Bob, thanks again.
Sharon?
Good luck, Bob. I hope you enjoy your new home.
Thank you.
Okay. Can I just make a statement?
Yeah.
I mean, I know you read the letter and I had everything in there. This is a great community. We're not moving because we don't like the community. But my wife and I just made a decision. We wanted to go to someplace a little smaller. And we do have a lot of friends over there and all. And that's one of the reasons. But my 11, almost 12 full years of living here have been very, very wonderful. There's a lot of things to do. I got the opportunity to serve my community. One, and I thank you, Lou, and the posse for 11 years, 2 years as its commander, and gave me great opportunity for the 2 years that I was able to work here, and hopefully added a little bit to make this the best community I know that it can be. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you also all the residents that were always good to everything that I did, especially in the posse and on this board. Again, thank you very much.
Bob, to serve on the governing board is probably the most thankful and thankless job at the same time. But thank you, thank you very much. You give conscience to what goes on here and keeps someone like me on the straight path, and I appreciate that. To the question that Roberta asked, because we have 2 directors-elect, and as of June 1st, we'll be sitting the next highest vote getter, which will be Lisa Vines, and she will take her position as of June 1st when Bob's resignation is put in place. Very good. Thank you. It's nice having directors-elect out there. You got to pull from them. Okay. Next thing up, director comments, board director comments. Who should I start with? Bob, you're going to start with you because I want to have some fun with you. That's all.
I got nothing else to say.
Thank you.
I know
Good
that's
news.
difficult, you know.
Good news. Jim?
No comment.
Donna?
No comment.
Sue? Sharon?
Yes. I just have a quick comment in regards to, hold on one second, I'm sorry, put this away. I don't believe you voted on 4.08 on this. It says it requires a majority vote. I don't think we voted on it. Under my director comments, just as a comment. Also,
4.08?
yep,
Wrong piece of paper.
you had her okay it, but I didn't hear a second or a vote.
No, no, there's not a vote on that one.
It says requires a majority vote on the top of the one that's in our file.
No, this is EOM reports and consent agenda. EOM reports are filed for information only not approved by the board.
Underneath this, sir, on the one that was sent out to us by Karen, it says requires a vote. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up.
Donna did read it, but.
I know,
what
but there
you're
was no
saying is that
second,
There was no.
And there was
vote?
no vote and there was no discussion, which is why I asked for the
Well,
question.
then what we will do then is we will go back into the meeting and we will go in there and Donna, I have to go into 4.08 and consent agenda. We'll make it right.
I move to approve the consent agenda and accept the May 2021 end of the month reports as filed information.
Okay.
I'll second.
And a second. Vote in the affirmative on this. Any discussion?
Yes. I asked about the EOM on a couple of questions I had. There's nothing in the policies to state about adding 2 to a golf cart, so I just wanted to know when we changed the policy and if it's changing back since we got so much pushback from the community about having to ride 2 people in a golf cart. And it's not in the report, so I'm asking why it's not in the report. Was it not discussed at the golf meeting? And how was the policy changed?
Pat, I know you're there. We're gonna put you on the spot on that one about the golf policy.
Good morning, everyone. Policy was enacted May 1st, where we changed 2 operating procedures. One of them was indoor seating into the pro shops. Due to COVID, we didn't have any of that going for the last year or so. We've allowed that, and then we changed we're going back to our actual cart policy of 2 riders. We're trying to minimize the number of carts in each group to minimize traffic on the golf courses to help Todd and his staff. So that happened May 1st.
And when will it be discontinued?
As far as the existing policies,
I meant the 2 in a cart. We have a lot of people out there who are not comfortable riding 2 in a cart.
right,
One being my husband who has a mask and he has his own golf cart for that reason.
right.
So what do you do with those people who actually wrote us letters specifically about that?
So we allow 3 carts in a group if they have a medical flag.
Okay, so only those with a medical flag?
At this point in time, we have allowed people to ride and add more carts to the group if they desire, but those are conversations that I end up having with those folks to try to understand where they're coming from and what their challenges are.
Okay,
So we handle that at Golf Ops.
okay, that's what I'm asking because there wasn't anything in the report and I know that we got a lot of letters about it from people and I got a lot of calls. So I
Okay.
just wanted to know what we were doing with it.
Right, so our stance is that we're trying to return back to normal cart rules going forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
On the space solutions, it's 4.04. Can I ask who put the survey together and how it's being distributed and what they're going to do with it?
The surveys were done by outside people. There were 17 surveys that were forwarded to us over the last number of years. And they were put together and they were given directly to the recreation manager for his use.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, there were 17 different surveys that we're sending out?
No, we didn't send them out.
Oh,
These were already done.
Okay,
They
so,
were already done. I would just say, go back onto the minutes and they're all there. They were all appropriately put out to the committee as all things are. If I remember correctly, in fact, Kay, did we not include all those things in there? The surveys, Kay Williams? Okay,
No,
thank you.
That's not my question, George. It just simply says in the minutes that the survey form of outside sources was created in a grid form. So I'm assuming that someone is putting together the 17 to put a survey out? Is that what's
No,
happening?
no, the
So
surveys
what is
were
the
already
grid
done.
form?
The surveys were already done, Sharon.
Okay.
They were done. They were done by.
No, I'm not questioning the surveys being done. You're misunderstanding what I'm asking. Are we looking at the surveys, sir, to be able to put our own survey together, or of something we want to ask our community? Or why are we combining, sending 17 surveys to staff to use?
The surveys were taken apart individually and looked at what each one of the surveys said that people wanted.
Okay.
And what we did is we put it in a grid form and gridded it out and said what we have and what we don't have, and pass that to the recreation manager.
Okay, so at this time, there's no survey going out to any of the community
No.
about what they want?
Nope.
Okay. And then the other one is about the Art and Design Committee on 4.02. Are you writing policies at this point? Because you have in here about teams continue to work during the summer, and about the design wall and the color boards. Who's putting together what this specific committee is going to be doing on policy-wise?
We have Carl is monitoring all of the activities, so that as the teams of people meet with the facilities leads and progress with the implementation phase, they connect with him, and then Carl tracks all of that information.
Okay, so Jim had the question before about bringing things to the board. I believe we said about whether or not things would come to the board before we went ahead and did something. So are these ideas?
These are things that can be done without cost, because our budget doesn't begin until July.
Okay,
So those things that are high cost items are not happening in this phase. It doesn't make sense to you, I can tell.
no, that's fine, but you've done a lot of work. So you're saying all this was paid for by somebody else? I mean, there's color boards at the rec
Okay,
center.
a color board is a 2 or 3 page item that goes into a folder that shows the paint colors and the color schemes that would be recommended for each of the facilities.
Nothing else has been decided on. That's all I'm
No.
asking.
No.
Okay, thank you.
With that, we will close that portion of it. We have discussion. We need a vote. Once again, I have to reread the motion. I got it here. Okay. Donna Maloney moves to approve the consent agenda and accept the May 2021 EO reports as filed for information. Requires a majority vote of yay to accept it or nay not to. Sharon?
Aye.
Lou?
Yes.
Berta?
Yes.
Ann?
Yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Donna?
Yes.
Bob? And Jim Rum, thank you very much. And we're going back in there. We were going around with comments.
No other comments?
Okay, do you have no other comment, Sharon? Thank you. Lou?
No comment.
Thank you. Roberta?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is for Riley. I'm a little, a lot of people moved here to Sun City West out of Sun City Grand. And a lot of it has to do with the mandatory CAM rules over there, their community association, as far as when you sell your home, that you have to have the HOA, CAM go over there and inspect it, and they make, while it's being sold or has an offer on it, you've got to make all these changes that CAM wants. And I find this a slippery slope here in Sun City West that we would make it voluntary now. I just worry it's going to creep up and become mandatory.
I think Riley has come to the microphone to address it. No problem. Let me go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. What we are offering, it's just a complimentary service to make sure that homes that are going up for sale meet the CCNR requirements so that we don't have issues with the new owner, for example, moving in and finding out that the home they purchased has issues or conflicts with the CCNRs. This is not mandatory, and our bylaws prohibit us from ever making this without a governing board change in those laws to make this mandatory. This is just a simple service that we're providing our community.
George?
Did I answer your question, Roberta?
Well, what facilitated us to decide to do this?
A request to have us come out and take a look at homes when people were selling them.
George, can I just make a comment?
Just a moment. When you through, Roberta? Yes, Sharon.
I think one of the things that I would have approved, would have wished for was, and Riley's well aware of this, is the person that built the 6-car garage across the street from us. Had we known in advance before Pora had turned over the files to us that they were building it in the beginning, it would never have gotten built. So I believe that that's part of what you're looking at as well, correct?
Yes, and we tried to obtain all the records we could from Pora when we did take over the CCNRs.
They when we took it over, there were quite a few open agenda items that they had that have not been looked at for a number of years. Kind way to put it. That's all. Yeah. Yes, Sue.
He had a comment back there.
Do I go up and ask a question?
You may as soon as go right ahead.
My question, Riley, has anybody checked with the insurance company to see whether there's any liability with providing this service?
When it comes to that, essentially, it's a request by the homeowner. We are seeking their permission. They come to us and ask us. We're happy to go out and take a look at the residence. And if we see any violation there, it's a homeowner request. We're not doing it on behalf of, say, a buyer or a seller. We're simply doing it for the homeowner.
So would not.
Correct.
And then if something happened after the fact, is somebody going to be liable?
That is a good question. I can review that, definitely. As of right now, though, when we go out on for example, if someone calls us on a violation, we still, do not enter anyone's property, and we are covered in that direction.
My concern is, if you go out, a seller says, would you come and give it an inspection? You do the inspection. Say your house is good, sell it. They sell it, and then the new buyer finds a problem. That buyer goes against the seller will come back against you saying you said it was all good and clear. And then the insurance company gets involved. I'm just saying there could be a problem as I view it.
I'll take that under advisement.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Harry.
And you're the last one on this one. Believe it or not.
No, I have nothing.
Okay, remote guest comments. There are none, since we don't have. We have comments from the guests in the audience that are here. Please, if you come up to the podium, just state your name, your recreation number, and it's time to go.
Gary Bosack, 102-585. How you do? I'm sad, sort of, because there are so few people that sit in this audience and come to these meetings, and the community gets cheated out of seeing the fantastic staff that we have in Sun City West. The amount of knowledge that they possess, the sincerity they have in doing their jobs, the openness that they have in communicating with a lot of very difficult people, it's just amazing. And a number of them have been called out and recognized for the last few months at the meetings I've been to, and one that hasn't. But I want to make a point, and he didn't ask me to do this just because I was sitting next to him, but Tad O'Hara has about single-handedly handled the golf situation in Sun City West to create a success that virtually saved our financials for the year. We're up $1,542,000 in revenue in golf this year. And that just doesn't happen. This was a very difficult thing that he had to get through with the COVID, not only with the golfers themselves, but with the employees. To sell them on continuing to do their job, show up for work every day, participate at the level that they participate at. It takes leadership to make that happen. And he and his club managers have done a fantastic job doing that. And I think he deserves a round of applause.
Thank you, Gary. Are there any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, we will adjourn the meeting. Our next governing board workshop is June 4th in the lecture hall. Please make note of that. We'll no longer be here. Our next governing board meeting is June 24th. It is here. It will be followed by the annual meeting. There are 2 meetings that day. We have a regular governing board meeting that then will be closed, and then we will have the annual meeting at that point. Hearing no other comments or questions, I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.